You said the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Okay, so this has been a source of contention for people that have deeper melanin, such as myself. Now, when it comes to talking about Charlie Kirk, when we're talking about the civil rights movement, first time I heard it, somebody said in my comments that this guy said that the civil rights movement was a mistake. Now, I did not know how to answer that, accusation, I guess, right? So I had to go look at the facts of the video and see exactly what he says. Now let's check out the video and see what he was talking about when he says that the civil rights movement was a mistake. Let's check it out.
You said the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so the parts of the Civil Rights Act were great, but the way it's now being implemented to force men in female bathrooms to push forward of the trans agenda, the intent of the Civil Rights Act is way beyond what it was originally authored for.
But the intent specifically originally was to
Well, that's interesting. So the intent and the law are two different things. So the intent was noble, which was to say that no American can be not allowed into a place of business based on the color of their skin or their ethnic heritage. Totally agreement with that. That's not what the law only did. It created a massive anti-racist DEI army that then gave us affirmative action. For example, recently Merrick Garland sued using the Civil Rights Act, saying that we cannot have voter ID in certain states because it's a violation of the Civil Rights Act. So basically what the Civil Rights Act did is that it went beyond disparate impact and then went to disparate effect. In the sense where if black Americans are not doing as well as white Americans in a certain category, you can now use the Civil Rights Act and say that's a violation of the Civil Rights Act, even though there might be other contributing factors. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's too broad, too wide, and it's now doing a lot of damage to the country. It's being used well beyond its original intent.
Do you support the Civil Rights Act?
In spirit, but not how it's written.
Why?
It's too broad and paved its way for the persecution. For example, they're using the Civil Rights Act to put men in locker rooms like Riley was in.
How? Which article?
Article 4 or 5, I think. I actually don't know specifically, but the Civil Rights Act is being used for by the trans movement right now because they say that they are women, therefore they demand an accommodation of women's rights. Riley can riff on this. They're using the Civil Rights Act literally to have access into female locker rooms.
So what would you change about the Civil Rights Act?
I wouldn't make it as broad. I would make it much more crisp and concrete, and I wouldn't have it necessarily. I would also get rid of the disparate impact component of the Civil Rights Act. So the biggest problem with the Civil Rights Act, there's 4 components of the beast of anti-racism. There's affirmative action, DEI, disparate impact, and then, of course, there's a 4th that I'll remember in a second, which is basically disparate impact is that it must be racism if 2 different groups have different outcomes, which, of course, is outrageous. Disparate impact is the legal theory that undergirds most of the enforcement of the Civil Rights Act. The Civil Rights Act has 9 different titles in it, and you have this leviathan that was created. And something that most black Americans don't support is men and female sports. Would you agree?
Wait, say that again?
Men playing in female sports.
Oh, hell no.
Believe it or not, the Civil Rights Act is now being used to keep men playing in women's sports.
Tight.
So the Civil Rights Act was used to help black America originally. Totally get that. But now the way it was written is that any claim of identification, so someone says, I'm a woman, therefore I can compete in your volleyball team, they come in with a civil rights claim. And so what we're saying is, no, it should be specified to racial, not gender, all that other stuff. And there were all these other provisions as well.
All right.
Okay, so now that we've seen the clips, let's see exactly what he's talking about when he's talking about Title 5 or Title 7 or whatever he's talking about, right? Let's see exactly what the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was actually talking about or what it states in those things. Let's check it out.
While there have been several civil rights acts passed in U.S. history from 1866 onward, the one most often referred to is the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Here's a clear breakdown. By the mid-20th century, racial segregation and discrimination, especially against African Americans, were still widespread in schools, public facilities, employment, and voting, despite earlier constitutional amendments like the 14th and 15th. The Civil Rights Movement, led by figures like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and organizations like the NAACP, pushed for strong federal laws to dismantle systemic racism. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson on July 2, 1964, this landmark act addressed multiple forms of discrimination. Key provisions: 1. Title II, Public Accommodations, outlawed segregation in hotels, restaurants, theaters, and other public places. 2. Title III, Public Facilities, prohibited state and municipal governments from denying access to public facilities based on race, religion, or ethnicity. 3. Title IV, Education, ordered the desegregation of public schools and gave the federal government authority to enforce it. 4. Title VI, federally funded programs, banned discrimination in programs and institutions that received federal funding. 5. Title VII, employment, prohibited employers, labor unions, and employment agencies from discriminating based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Created the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, to enforce these rules. Later Civil Rights Acts. 1965 Voting Rights Act protected voting rights by outlawing literacy tests and discriminatory voting practices. 1968 Civil Rights Act, Fair Housing Act, prohibited discrimination in housing sales or rentals. 1991 Civil Rights Act strengthened laws on employment discrimination, providing more remedies for victims. Impact: it gave federal backing to dismantling Jim Crow laws in the South, opened pathways for equality in education, jobs, and public life, inspired later movements for gender equality, disability rights, and LGBTQ+ rights. In short, the Civil Rights Act, especially the one from 1964, was a turning point in U.S. history. It made racial segregation and many forms of discrimination illegal and gave the federal government the power to enforce equal rights.
Okay, so now that we've seen the clips of, what he was talking about when he's talking about the civil rights movement, we know that he was not actually talking about race. Now, if you've made it to this point, you're obviously a person that is, a critical thinker, right? You don't use emotion to base your feelings about a particular person, or you don't just go with what people are saying, which is basically why I'm doing this fact checking series on whoever it is or who is accused of being a particular way, right? Because like right now the problem is with the internet, they'll take like small clips of what somebody says and then they'll go with that narrative and try to push, that the guy was racist or he was anti this or he was phobic in this particular nature, when that's not actually the case, right? So when it comes to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, when he's talking about it, he says that he wanted to be, Civil Rights Act to be more specific, to be more tailored toward race. Because when it comes to race, it was correct in fixing that error in terms of like segregation. It was also, correct in fixing the error. It did not say that those things were wrong, right? He even argues, against segregation and, some clips that I've seen.
Address your previous assertion that race means nothing. Critical race theory is not being taught in schools. It is a academic theory that's pretty much delegated only to higher academia. They are not teaching it in schools. Your explanation of it was an oversimplification. You address the real history behind it, unlike most people. And why, if race means nothing, does it affect our history? Say 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Why is there such evil history with something that supposedly means nothing?
Okay, so first of all, you're wrong. It is being taught in elementary schools. I'll give you an example. Not only is it being taught, it's being enforced. So in Denver, there is a playground where they say white families not allowed. Would you support that?
That seems like a ridiculous edge case.
So I'll give you another example. Actually, in the National Education Association's training manual, which is the largest teacher union in the country, they had a seminar on how to teach critical race theory to kids. That sounds like it's in our schools, doesn't it?
What that is it's literally just common sense. It's saying that this is real history. This is what has happened in the past.
Right. So
that matters.
Okay, got it. So, for example, would you say that black-only dormitories is wrong?
It certainly creates a sense of community. I don't see any problem with that. We have sororities. We have male-only dorms.
Right. So racial differences are irrelevant and immaterial. Chromosomal differences actually do matter. But let me ask you a question. Are there differences between races?
No, not biologically.
Then why would we have different dormitories for races?
Culture.
Segregation is what you're arguing for, my friend.
No, sir. No, sir.
How is it not segregation to have blacks in their own dorm?
You've just pigeonholed me, essentially. You've essentially just you've distracted from my original argument.
No. You did that to yourself. Let's reemphasize. So Ibram X. Kendi argues, who is one of the leading thinkers of critical theory, race theory, discrimination today to atone for discrimination of yesterday. We have black-only graduation ceremonies at Columbia University, black-only dormitories across the country, for example, at Western Washington University. Can you join me today in saying black-only dormitories are evil, wrong, and it's segregation?
You still haven't answered my question about why does this history simultaneously mean nothing?
Well, I'm
And
happy to answer
also-
that, but the fact you're dodging segregation in America, why is that?
I'm arguing against segregation.
So you're against black-only dormitories?
Yes.
Well, you said it was a force of community, and then for your not for critical race
That's
theory.
an option. We have choice.
Oh, so you could choose to segregate.
That's a pigeonhole.
What do you think of white-only dormitories?
What?
Would you support white-only dormitories?
Everybody has a choice.
So I think white-only and black-only anything is evil and wrong. That's why I hate critical theory and critical race theory, because when it's
Which
put in
isn't being taught in
practice, you start to discriminate people based on race. So we're now south of the Mason-Dixon line in North Carolina. We did a lot of work to get rid of segregation in this country. Why are you trying to bring it back?
What work?
The Civil Rights Act of 1964.
In this state?
Yeah, actually, in this state. Are there black-only bathrooms out there I'm unaware of, or white-only bathrooms?
Nah.
Right. A lot of work was done in this state.
Fuck you, your face is small.
Well, thanks for being here. They always go to insults when they lose the argument. God bless you, my friend.
So you can't just go like, okay, based on what somebody says about Charlie Kirk, is definitely racist. That's a narrative that I had seen most people saying it, right? This is some of the tactics that, some news people saying, old media, that's how they do. They will take like a small snippet of you and then they'll run with the story or with the narrative. We don't want to do that. We want to be more factual and we want to fact check everything just to make sure that it's correct, right? Now, like I said, I don't agree with everything that, Charlie Kirk says or he has said when he was alive, right? But, where he is correct, I'm with it. And when it comes to this 1964 Civil Rights Act, I am definitely with what he's saying and understand what he's saying, right? So if you have any, things that you think that he said that was wrong, I'll be happy to fact check everything. Because I saw this thing in one of my comments when somebody said, okay, he was racist because of the Civil Rights Act. And I asked him for the video to show me exactly when he said this thing. They didn't bring out any evidence. So I went and actually checked it myself. Now we found out that it was actually opposite. It was nothing to do with race at all. It was more about, putting males in females' bathrooms. But anyway, man, if you have anything that you want to say in regards to Charlie Kirk or in regards to this video, just put it in the comment section below and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.